Hi. How is everyone? How are everyone? How are we all doing? All right. I'm seeing people coming up on the screen. So fun to see you. Hello, hello, hello. So nice to see all of you. Okay, this is the one bummer about a webinar, is I don't actually see your faces, but I can see your names, and it's so fun to see you. All right, so today's call, you will have a chance to be coached, okay? So you have a chance to raise your hand and to get coached. So I do encourage you to have questions ahead of time. And as I'm going through today's class, you can definitely write down any question and we will have time. And I definitely commit to however long we need to be to answer everyone's question, all of that, I'm here. Okay. So please know that you don't have to feel rushed or anything. We have lots of time to answer any questions. So it's so nice to see you. Happy Memorial Day to all my American friends. I'm wearing some fun red pants, red and blue. I didn't put the white in there, but anyways. All right. So how are you all doing? So good. I am like here for you. This is such a good webinar and I look forward to coaching you. And so again, I'm Dara Thomason. I'm weight loss coach for quilters. And it's so much fun to watch all of my clients having so much success and just keep showing up for themselves. We always do celebrations at the beginning of every call. And one of the celebrations that I always have is that you just don't quit on yourself. And that's so, so important. So the fact that you're here, it's just amazing. So give yourself a pat on the back. Okay. So today we're going to work on this concept. And I do encourage you to turn off your phones and just to give yourself just this time to be present. So I know for some of you that's really hard, but like I say to you all the time, your brain is your best investment. And so giving yourself this time just to be calm, to learn, to enjoy is just a beautiful treat that you've given yourself. Okay. All right. So the problem is so today's webinar and topic is the top 3 ways to increase joy and not to depend on food. So in the chat, I want you to tell me, why do we rely on food for joy? And it is quite fitting that today is Memorial Day. Last Monday was actually our long weekend. We call it Victoria Day. So it was the Queen's birthday. And so, yeah, a lot of holidays, what do? We rely on food and we focus on the food. What are we going to serve? What are we going to eat? Holidays, vacations, birthdays, all of that. Why is that happen? So write it in the chat. I want to hear, and put it in the chat, not the Q&A. So there's 2 spaces. Food has been a comforter. Yeah. Food also is a huge distraction. So if we are for holidays, if we can be, so in my church, I volunteer with the youth, and Saturday was a big day. We had a big event, and most of my time was spent in the kitchen preparing food. And so it's a big part of taking care of people, and most of the women here are moms, or and so food is a focus, obviously, because we need to feed ourselves. But if all we do is focus on the food, then it's distracting us from having the relationships with the kids. And so I actually eventually was able to get out of the kitchen and I was able to connect with a lot of the kids. But kids, I say youth, like they're 12, these kids were 13 to 18. But just having those connections with people, and so for some people, that's really scary. So attitudes are ingrained in our childhood, totally. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with healthy, amazing food. And there's nothing wrong, like Marlene, you have, 5 kids and you just had another grandchild. I think it was a grandson. So we definitely have to be focusing on taking care of our bodies, but potato chips is not a great way of taking care of our bodies. Overeating, stuffing ourselves, that's not a great way of taking care of our bodies. Okay. So I have a bunch of reasons here. And so we have food portion size. And one of the things that I found, even being like my daughter and I just got back from our trip, we had so much fun, but just in restaurants, it was like the difference of food portion sizes from different restaurants is alarming. So what is deemed normal consumption? So that is one part. Another thing that happens is there's a lot of misinformation out there. So this whole idea of back like in the idea of like a cholesterol, there's a lot of misinformation about that. And so for a while there, people were eating margarine. Margarine is not good for you. And even this misinformation about like red licorice being fat-free, that's really not true. So food portion size, psychology. So we weren't taught to really manage our emotions. So when we were like sad, we would just be given a sucker and we don't really know how to cope. And so one of those things are using food as a way of coping, of like kind of calming ourselves down, but really it's false. Like we're not really calming ourselves down. We're just distracting ourselves from the actual problem. And, as we talk about this motivational triad of that is how we were, like our instincts tell us. I'm just like, I wrote all my notes because I wanted to like just talk to you and not have the slide. So I'm just doing that. But so our evolutionary transition from the motivational triad of like seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and reducing effort, that is like, we have to be really careful because the food marketing in the US and in the world is based on taking advantage of our desire for pleasure with the least amount of effort. So that's a big, big issue that we have. We also have our neurobiology. And so some of you have heard me talk about this before, but it's really worth repeating. And I do really want all of you to understand weight loss, like that foundational part. And so I'm just going to read what I have here. So our brains are designed to be rewarded for life-preserving activities. So food provides that reward in the form of serotonin, dopamine, and or desire. So all the cues around food create a neural pathway that reminds us how important it is to seek it again and again. So the problem is when you concentrate and refine food, you concentrate that response into your brain. So what this does, it leads your brain to believe that concentrated foods are much more important to eat than they really are. And dopamine creates more desire for the food. So as we eat it, the flood of dopamine downregulates the receptors, perpetuating that desire. So the more you do something and the more you practice something, the stronger the corresponding neural pathways become. So eventually we get so good at it that it becomes an unconscious habit. So one of my clients just shared this morning, she just automatically ate breakfast and didn't even realize she'd eaten breakfast until after, because it was such a habit. And but the beautiful thing is our brains are actually plastic. We can change these ingrained pathways by replacing new ones. So that's the best news ever. So if you were, every time you were sad, you went to ice cream to feel better, that there was that neurobiological response of like, you're sad, let's go eat ice cream. And, but we're interrupting that. We're like, no, I'm sad. I'm just going to feel that sadness. I don't need ice cream, because when I eat the ice cream, I actually just get even more upset because now I'm mad at myself for eating the ice cream. Okay. Another piece of why we rely on food for joy is that we have a hormone imbalance. And so because our hormones are imbalanced, we aren't taking care of ourselves. And so when we have like so much insulin in our bodies, we are now becoming more and more addicted to that. And so when we start learning how to balance that, we're going to be a lot more healthy. And the obesity epidemic is caused by too much insulin in the blood. And insulin, of course, is that storage hormone of whenever it is elevated in the blood, the body cannot use fat as fuel. So insulin resistance, and diabetes have skyrocketed with the increase in consumption of high sugar and high starch foods. Insulin has also affected the presence and effectiveness of our leptin and ghrelin, which, as you know, leptin tells us when we're full, and ghrelin tells us when we're hungry. Right? So that's all that's happening. So there's some really good clues. The other thing is we're not handling our cravings very well. So we're not able, so we have a craving and we want to fulfill it right away, but really it's like having a temper tantrum, right? So if it's like a 3-year-old at the grocery store who wants that chocolate bar, and you respond to them and give them the chocolate bar when they have a fit, then you're just enabling them. And we've been doing that with cravings. We've been doing that with urges. So if we don't just sit with those, then we're really causing ourselves, like we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're giving ourselves permission to be like temper tantrums. Okay. And we're enforcing that. We overstimulated by food. So we like eat all this food and then we don't really know what to do with it. And like I said about because we get a dopamine hit when we eat food, because like back in the day when weeds, or not weeds, but like grasses or crickets was the only form of food, we got a dopamine hit from that. And now we're overstimulating ourselves. And so it feels really, we don't really know how to like regulate those emotions or that craving. So we don't really understand hunger. And the month of May, so for those of you ladies in my program, you know it. For those of you, so we really focused on hunger. And if you go to my Instagram, and if you're on my you're on my email, you got the 30 days of hunger challenge. And so just really understanding about hunger and understanding like it takes about 3 or 4 hours for our food to digest. So even the food that we just ate, that will sustain us for those 3 or 4 hours. Unless you have zero body fat, you will actually be fine, because 1 pound of stored fat is 3,000 calories. So just understanding hunger and understanding what that does for us. Another issue is we don't know how to meet our own needs. So and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later today, but talking about how do we create our own joy for ourselves. And a lot of us have trained ourselves to need validation from other people, or be so worried about other people judging us. And we don't know how, because we don't know how to create our own joy. The other part is that we don't know how to take responsibility for our own self and our own emotions. And that's super scary. We have been conditioned to rely on food. It really has been. So like when we think about planning a party, like so much of that is all about the food. We also have food as a form of celebration. Again, like what do we have to eat in order to celebrate? So if our doctor said to us, we can't eat these foods anymore, does that mean we can't live? We can't celebrate? So if you got a diagnosis of your celiacs, so you can't have birthday cake, so you can't celebrate with birthday cake, you can't celebrate birthdays. So just like really think about it. And I want to hear your thoughts in the chat about the kinds of things that I'm saying. And especially, I mean, most of you on this call, you have been a client of mine at some point. And so this is not new to you in learning that our emotions come from our thoughts, not from the food that we've eaten. Okay. So, all right. So these are all the reasons why. Now, why doesn't food work? So what do you think? What are the reasons why we can't get our joy from food? And I want to hear from you in the chat. So why hasn't that worked? Because we've all been trying it, right? We're all like, no, 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 we got all the treats. Like, we got this. We got the popcorn at night. Why doesn't that work? Okay. So I want to hear what your thoughts are. It's a temporary fix. Yeah. Yeah. What else? What else do you think? Why do you think that's happening? So as you're thinking about this, and I do like this to be interactive because I do want your brain to be engaged with me. I really want this to be super interactive because one of the things that can happen, and we all know this, is that it's super easy to consume information, but it's difficult to use that information. So, you can watch a documentary, you can watch, like if you're in my program, like watch the modules, you can listen to my podcast, even if you're not, like you can do all of that consuming part. But if you're not interacting with it, you're not manipulating it, you're not like working with it, then it's like, oh, that makes sense. That sounds really good. But then if you're not like creating new neural pathways and you're not like creating systems in your brain to understand it, it doesn't really help you. And even in my podcast, so those of you who, who aren't in my program, even with my podcast, I have worksheets for you because I want to show you how important it is to not just consume information, but you need to like use that information and you got to start applying it to you. So Carol said, it doesn't solve the emotion we are feeling. So we just continue to eat and the emotion isn't solved. So we can carry on. Right. So the emotion, every emotion we have comes from a feeling always. Sorry. Emotion comes from a thought. Sorry. So we have a thought like, I'm not good enough. And then we have this emotion of shame or embarrassment or of whatever that is. We don't get shame. So even if we look in the mirror at ourselves and we say, oh, I'm embarrassing, the only way we feel embarrassed is because we had a thought, I am embarrassing. I can't believe my weight or whatever. So because that is where emotions come from. They come from our thoughts. So, so when we try to, so we have all these negative emotions about ourselves and we try to use food to feel better. So what we're doing is we're getting this dopamine hit from the food, which is like a wired response. But the double whammy about this is that now we're saying, okay, I need sugar or flour. I need the donut or I need the whatever it is, the cookie to feel better. So we think that we're solving the problem, but really we're not. We're not really feeling better. And then we're making it worse by just like with drugs, like I don't know, line of cocaine. I have no idea. I mean, I just get this from neurobiology. It's like what used to get you high doesn't get you high anymore. You need more and more lines of cocaine to get higher and higher for drugs. It's the same thing with sugar. So before, like a couple of chocolate chips would give you that zing and be like, yeah, okay, I can do this. But now you need like 10 chocolate chips to get that same level of zing. And then you need 20. So that's the problem. We're wiring ourselves to need more and more. And that's really unhealthy, obviously. It's kind of like even with like fabric shopping, right? It's like, oh, I just a few fat quarters isn't going to do it for me anymore. I need like the kits, I need the bundles, I need the subscription or whatever it is. Okay. And then like it just gets worse and worse. So it's the same thing. You're using an external thing to try to make yourself feel better. All right. So the problem is we think that food is a comforter. We think that food makes us feel better, but really the role of food is, and this was from my my most recent master course, fat heals, proteins build, and carbs fuel. That's actually what food does. Easy to get started, and then we can't stop on the sugar. Totally. Right. And that's why, like, when you start Love Yourself Thin, I challenge you all to go 6 weeks without sugar and flour, because it's really showing you what's going on in your brain. Like it shows you all your buffers. It's the same thing with shopping, right? If you're like, I'm not going to buy fabric for a week, or I'm not going to buy fabric for a month. It shows you all the buffers that are coming up. Okay. So the problem why food doesn't work to bring you joy is because food is there to heal your body, especially like the good food, right? Heals and then builds and then gives you protein, gives you energy. Another part is that food doesn't actually solve our problem. I know it's so annoying. We think ice cream helps us feel better. It does in the moment, but it doesn't last. It's a false pleasure. It's not a true fix. So what has happened instead? Okay. So we haven't learned how to take care of our own needs, and we walk around, and this part is super interesting and frustrating. And I get it. It's like, I feel like it's so annoying because you're like, I wish I could solve this problem this way, but apparently it doesn't work. And you've tried it so many different ways. So the problem is when you try to solve your problem with food and it doesn't work. So now what's happened is we walk around feeling unempowered because we don't know how to take care of our own needs, because we're like relying on ice cream to feel better, or donuts, or baking, or whatever it is. And then we feel unempowered about our lives. And now we walk around as a victim. And the problem with walking around as a victim is that there's always a villain. And then the villain is now food. So now you have this super unhealthy relationship of you're like, I'm afraid, I'm fearful, I don't feel empowered, I don't feel like I have a voice, I don't feel like I have a solution. And so now you're trying to solve the food problem with feeling very fearful and feeling very scared because food is now such a villain to you. See why it's so hard? Like, I want to give you so much love. Of course. And so some of you have been having this fight for your life, your whole life, ever since you were a little kid, right? You got the sucker to feel good in the moment. You didn't know how to deal with your emotions. You didn't even feel empowered that you could deal with your emotions. You were judging yourself with it. Okay. So now, so we're fearful of food. So what actually works, so these are the ABCs of what actually works. A is you understand what food is for. So you learn the role that it plays for us individually. So just like with the master course, food, like carbs fuel, protein builds, and fats heal. And if you can pronounce it, and if it walked on the earth, it's good to eat. Okay. Now, B is you take responsibility for your current weight and become a scientist. So you need to learn to collect the data of why you weigh what you weigh. So every stored pound of fat is 3,000 calories. Our bodies need approximately 1,200 calories a day just for its basic functioning. And so if you weigh 30 pounds more than what your ideal body is, so you have just been consuming more food, more energy than your body needs. So why? So when you, and then actually I'm going to ask you to write it down, write it in the chat. Why do you think your body has all this extra stored fat? Stored energy, really. That's what it is. It's not stored energy, is just in the form of fat. So why does your body have that? Eating too much. So why are you eating too much? Why aren't you paying attention? Why are you walking through the kitchen? Every time you walk through the kitchen, you grab something. Why are you overeating? Gone to food for comfort for too long. So you're like, you just had these false pleasures, and it's like you have to keep selling yourself on it, because food really isn't comfort. Because I can guarantee you, after you've eaten that ice cream or after you've eaten whatever it is, you may not feel gross after, but you certainly don't feel great when you put your pants on the next day and they're still snug. It's not a healthy relationship. Oh, pardon me. I did not feel well last night. I used food thinking it would help me feel better. Yeah. And I tell you, ladies, I still do that. There's still times where I'm like, if I eat this chocolate bar, I could have about 2 minutes right now where I would feel great. Yeah, it's like a one night stand. Yeah. It's like, I'm lonely. Maybe if I just had that guy's not that great, but in the moment it might feel good. And I still do that. I have a lady I was talking to last week, and she's been doing some different work, and she said, I still have urges for food, for like chocolates and things. And I'm like, of course, I do too. That is really, really normal. It really is. And I want to really normalize that for all of you. Okay. So A is understand what food is for. So learning the role that it plays for us individually. And this is the most beautiful thing, all of you ladies. Like I say, proteins build, fats heal, and carbs fuel. Like that is the roles. And we also have, we eat cauliflower and we eat all these foods to give us minerals and nutrients like iron and riboflavin and like all these like vitamins, like all these different vitamins. Like that is why we eat the vegetables. I remember it wasn't too long ago that I was like, oh, the soil has minerals and nutrients and our bodies need minerals and nutrients. And the way we get minerals and nutrients is from food. Wild. Okay. So, and then C, so B is take responsibility for your current weight and become a scientist. So collect data of how you got there. I really want you to take ownership of what your body it looks like and why. Because you're the one who puts the food in your mouth. So you might as well start feeling empowered about it. You might as well start really understanding what you're doing. And then C is be an active participant in your relationship with your brain and your body. So if our feelings always come from our thoughts, so if we had the thought, I'm beautiful, we're going to have the emotion of love. If we have the thought, I'm late, we're going to have the emotion of rushed. So our emotions are always informed by our thoughts. So if we are not allowing ourselves to feel any feeling, we are disconnected. So I would rather to say that, you're on this call, you're watching the replay, is if you could look at your body and say, okay, I weigh 50 pounds overweight. What is going on? It's because you aren't aware. You're not allowing yourself to feel all the feelings. And you want the good feelings only, but in order to feel good feelings, you have to allow negative feelings. That's when I call the 50-50. In order to feel happy, you need to know what sad feels like. Okay. So I have a client. Is she on this call right now? No, she's not. But this morning she talked about how she had her mom visit, and instead of going to the chocolate to feel better, she talked about having to do thought downloads during the day to figure out, okay, mom was saying words. I don't have to react to her words. She's allowed to have her own words, and I'm allowed to have my own reaction to those words. Okay. So when you do that, you're now not binging on the chocolate cake, and you're not going to the store and going through the drive-through. You're able to just be like, oh, I'm feeling really annoyed right now. I'm feeling really upset. Okay. All right. So when you do those A, B's, and C's of understanding what food is for, learning the role of what it is for us, when you're taking responsibility for your current weight, becoming a scientist, so you're collecting data, and then C, you're being an active participant in the relationship with your brain and your body. What starts happening then is you understand weight loss science. See, I even brought some weight loss science in today's call. You solve for the food that you eat and what it's doing for your body. You're like, oh, I can be trusted around food. And you collect data and use that data in your favor. So, okay, so when I'm snacking, I can see that I'm not losing weight as much. I'm not sleeping very well. Oh, I can see that's contributing to my weight gain. Oh, I'm eating too much. Oh, I'm overeating. Even though I'm eating good food, when I overeat, I can see what's happening here. And then the other skill that's created is that you be empowered in your thinking about yourself. You're like, you know what? I actually can be trusted around food. I can do that. That's really cool. I don't have to have a science degree. I don't have to have a nutrition degree. And then these are the results that are created. So you lose weight predictably. And if you're not losing weight predictably, then you can start understanding, oh, what's going on here? What's this all about? And you have enough confidence that you can kind of start thinking, oh, I'm like hiding again. And I do want you to know that I go up in weight 10 pounds all the time, up and down 10 pounds. It's so normal because we always have a human brain that comes with us. Okay. But I don't freak out about it. I realize, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Okay, I see. You understand what you are feeling and why you're feeling that, because you understand that your emotions come from your thoughts. And now you can start watching your thoughts. You don't have to be hiding from yourself. Okay. You make goals and you accomplish them. Isn't that fun? Because you're like, oh, I'm to be trusted. I can do these things. The other results you can expect are you have so much more energy to pursue other dreams in your life because you're not punching yourself in the face all the time about your body. You're like, oh, I'm in charge of my body. I'm in charge of my thoughts. I'm in charge of everything. And I can always work on this. I love what Susan said. Food was my friend, was my thought, always there for me. Yeah. And that she wasn't a really nice friend because the aftermath was you feel shame, you feel guilt, you feel bad. Kind of like what Krista was saying about, it's like a one night stand. That is not a healthy relationship to have a one night stand. It does not work well for the person. for either person. It's degrading. It's not like a wholesome relationship, right? That's why we have so many youth that are just feeling so bad about themselves because they don't have these healthy boundaries and relationships. You have more time and energy in your day to do what you want. I said that. You build self-confidence. You learn that you can be trusted, and you don't rely on other people's validation. This is so big. And in fact, this is what I'm going to be talking about in the master course that's coming up June 20th to 24th. So I changed the dates for it because I want to go to Quilt Canada. And I forgot to check those dates before I made the plan. But needing other people's validation is a big problem, especially for all you people pleasers out there. So we're going to be really diving into that, those codependent behaviors. And then you aren't so worried about what other people think, and you don't feel selfish when you work on yourself because you're showing up as the best version of yourself. That's another thing we're going to be working on. We're also going to be, our focus for the month of June on our Monday calls will be on learning how to create our own joy internally and not relying on external things like buying fabric, by eating, by people pleasing, by like being run by your checklist, all of those external things. Okay. All right. So that's the training for today. Now, this is your time to raise your hand and I can bring you on. You can ask questions in the chat also. And I do have this PDF. If any of you, I can just, it's very simple, but I do like to have that format. And then I can just put that in there for you if you want. And I can put it in the group. All right. So who has questions? I can actually do that right now. I think I can do that right now. Google Doc. Yep. A lot of times when Rochelle is here, she just puts that kind of stuff in their chat, but I can do it too. Okay. So what questions do you have for me? About this idea of, or you could even like talk about that transition of learning how to, what does it take to learn to rely on yourself for creating your own joy? Like, what has that meant for you that you're no longer needing to turn to the chocolate to feel better, to turn to the cookies or to turn to the ice cream? Your thoughts on that? And even just that transition, like what Susan was saying about food was her friend. So I feel like we did this exercise about popcorn. We did different foods. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. I have a new friend, me. I almost want to cry when I see that because it's the truth. We don't even really know who we are. And this is what we're talking, like this is some of the work that we're going to do in the master course in June. So many of us don't even know who we are. And it's so sad. We have been caretakers, caregivers. And when we think about caregiving and caretakers, it's like, we don't even know who we are. And we're going to dive more into that in the course when I talk about the victim and the prosecutor and the rescuer. It's this really unhealthy triad that we all kind of go through, and we've been using food as a really unhealthy source for that. Okay. So I'm going to, okay, so please ask any question. I do have, want to share with you how we can really learn to become our own best friend and how we can learn to really trust ourselves. See, I told you I wear my fun red jeans. So please feel free to ask any questions. So this call is for like current clients, people who have worked with me before, and then anyone new that's coming. And so there's like a variety of all of you on this call. So what does that mean to have, like, even when you hear Carol saying that of letting go of food, how does that feel for you? Is that scary? And I want you to know too, like, I'm not asking you to give up chocolate. I'm not asking you to give up ice cream. I'm not asking you to give up popcorn or any of that. That is not the love yourself thin way. So glad the date's changed. I can come. Oh, super. It was meant to be. So I don't ever ask anyone to give up food because I don't want us to be afraid of food, and I don't want us to feel like food is like dangerous or whatever. But I just want us to plan from our higher brain. Okay, so Krista said, when starting this program, does it take time to figure out thoughts and emotions since I've used food to buffer for so many years? Okay, so do you want me to coach you on that? You can just raise your hand. What my answer would be is it always. I have been like, oh, here we go. Let me just raise, there we go. This is fun. I'm going to allow to talk. So I think you just go. Okay, you got to put your promote to panelist. This is fun. I think you can just, I think I bring you on the screen. Right? Okay, you can talk. I can hear you. You just have to show your screen now. Or you can just keep talking. Oh, there we go. Hey. All right, so ask your question to me.
Okay, I'm in the program, and this whole idea of paying attention to my thoughts and emotions has been challenging because I have been using food to kind of suppress all that for so many years. And I kind of liken it to when I first learned needle turn applique. I felt like I had butterfingers, and I had to practice and practice. And it was so frustrating at first, but now it's like second nature. So I'm kind of looking at this like I'm starting over with this thoughts and emotions thing. And I have to be honest, it's pretty sad that I can't even figure out what my thought. I'm getting better at my thoughts, but the emotions that come with it is hard to do. And
Yes.
So that's pretty normal when you're starting out.
It's so normal. I have one of my clients, she's on the call, I won't shout her out, but she has emotion lists like in several areas of her house. Because it is so not intuitive for her to do this thought and feelings. And she's been working with me for like over 2 years. And I love the idea of trying on emotions like trying on jeans. Right? So when you go to the the store, are you going to wear jeans that don't feel good? Or are you going to commit to yourself? I'm like, I'm going to wear jeans that are going to feel good. So sometimes you have to try on like 12 pairs of jeans. So the circumstance, so this is like, it needs to be neutral, right? Like, so how much you weigh, that would be an example, or how much money's in your bank or whatever, how many quilts you have ready for quilting. That is actually neutral, even though it feels like stressful. but you have a thought about it. And whatever, and you probably have lots of thoughts. That's why we do thought downloads. But so you pick the one thought, but in order to do this thought model, which is going to be like a mirror to your brain, this is the part that's tricky. It's like, what actual is the feeling that I feel? And that's what I mean about trying on the jeans. And one of the things I recommend is looking up the word, the feeling word, and like a dictionary definition. That's really going to start helping your brain be like, do I feel anxious or do I just feel annoyed? Do I feel embarrassed or do I feel like ashamed? And giving yourself permission to be like, you know what, I'm worth spending like 5 minutes to figure out what's the actual feeling I'm feeling. Because what do you think is going to happen when you really start understanding the feeling you have? What do you think is the result of that?
What is the result of that?
Yeah. So if you spend time so if you understand, you're like, oh, I actually am feeling embarrassed. So when you finally figure out that you feel embarrassed, what is going to be the benefit of that?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Just take a guess.
Well, it will help me know what I need to do next as far as how to figure out why I'm feeling that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also going to help you see that when you're embarrassed, you hide, you don't show up, you might not talk to people, like all those things. So then these become I call them the red flags for behavior, right? So now you've got these red flags and you're like, oh, you scroll on social media, you eat chips or whatever. And so you're like, oh, I just do this when I don't want to let myself just be embarrassed. Because you had a thought that caused you to feel embarrassed. And then so instead of eating chips, now you can just be, oh, I'm just going to let myself feel embarrassed. And I don't have to waste any time being scrolling on social media. I'll just be embarrassed. I'm just going to embrace being a human. Kind of like what, when Deb was talking this morning about doing the thought download instead of, yelling at her mom or whatever. Okay. So what does that mean for you? Like when you understand that that emotion, the feeling is important to pay attention to.
That's the part that I get stuck on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the feeling, so when you allow the feeling, you don't react to it anymore. You don't avoid it and you don't resist it. So now you're not turning to food to try to solve your problem. You're not, wasting time on social media. You're not blaming your past for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? So all these terrible actions that you used to take, overeating, you don't have to do those anymore because you're like, oh, I'm just going to feel my feeling. I'm just going to let myself be a human and feel embarrassed right now instead of sabotaging yourself. This is all sabotage stuff, right?
Right.
Like you didn't wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to eat half a bag of chips.
Right.
But the reason you ate that half a bag of chips is because you felt embarrassed, but you didn't let yourself feel embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Isn't that fascinating?
So I guess I would, what happens after you're feeling the feelings? So you're just sitting through it and yeah.
You're just letting them be there. You're letting yourself be a human.
So is there something that happens in your brain when you're feeling the feeling that takes away that desire to run to something else?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Yeah, because you're just accepting, I'm feeling embarrassed right now. And because the fact is, when you feel embarrassed, if you eat food, you're still going to be embarrassed. And then, in fact, now you're adding more negative emotions because now you're going to feel regret, you're going to feel disappointment, and you're going to feel like self-hate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're just letting yourself be like, oh, yeah, I'm just feeling embarrassed.
Yeah.
And now we don't have all those extra calories we have to deal with. Isn't that good news?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take time. And you know what's so funny? I mean, I've been doing this for what, 3 years now? September, I got my first life coach in like August or July of 2018. And I still feel embarrassed and annoyed and all those emotions because I'm a human. I have a human brain that will come with me. It's not like there's ever a moment where you're going to be cured. We're just always evolving. I'm just way better at like feeling the feeling, and I don't eat the whole bag of chips. I don't even go to the cupboard anymore. Sometimes I might, and I'm like, and then I realize, oh, what am I doing? But it's just that road doesn't last as long. Super helpful.
Yeah.
I love those questions. Do you have any other questions?
I think that's it for now.
So good. All right. Who else has a question? I can now, I think I have to promote you. Oh, there we go. She did it. Okay. It's not scary. I've learned how to change my relationship with food. Totally. Yeah. And so just like I was saying to Krista, changing your relationship with food it's like any of us, it's just a matter of time. We're just changing our relationship. So, I mean, some of you had kids and then they left home. And so now you have to readjust your relationship with your spouse. Some of you have retired. And so it's like, oh, I don't do everything I used to do. I have all this new freedom. I have all this new different focus. That's all. Right. So with all of you, I do want to just encourage you that life is always evolving and changing. And if we don't evolve and change our brain along with it, we are going to be left behind. We won't even know who we are anymore. Okay. So, all right. But embracing our lower brain thinks that change is scary because it's going to involve more work. I totally get it. You're like, yeah, I know. But before I learned to quilt, I was super scary. And now I'm like, I love it. It's so fun. It's worth it. Before I learned to drive, I was super scared to drive. So glad I can drive now. Okay. All right. So what I wanted to share now is I wanted to talk about what it means to be in the Love Yourself Thin program. And so some of you who have worked with me in the past, you're on this call. And I think that sometimes we think, well, I've already learned all this stuff. But just like I was saying to Krista, is that we always bring our human brain along with us. And our human brain is always going to offer us like opposition. It's always going to offer us some sort of resistance, some sort of reaction, and it's like we should probably avoid stuff. And so it's been really fascinating for me in the lifetime membership group of how much these women are continuing to grow, how much they are continuing to thrive and strive as they have and there's 3 coaching calls a week, there's the group, all of that, but just having that support. So if you're on this call and you aren't in the lifetime membership, I just curious for you of, are you still stalling? Because there's women in my program that are in the lifetime membership, and they have some of them have some significant stalls in weight loss, but they're not giving up on themselves because they know that the more that they do this work, the more that they can clean up their thoughts. So this hasn't changed. So we have the weight loss science is simple, create and troubleshoot your own protocol, your own eating plan, recognize and process your emotions, take full responsibility for yourself, for exactly how much you weigh and why, and then you create this confidence for yourself. And so this process is always going. So even if you've lost your 70 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever, and you want to thrive more, then being in the program is going to help you to really hone those skills. I myself have my own life coach because I have a human brain that's going to try to hide and be sneaky and not want me to keep going. Like, yeah, just keep going. You're fine. You're just fine the way you are. And I mean, I've lost over 50 pounds and I've kept it off. But again, I have a human brain that's going to give me like, hey, you don't need to do this anymore. You don't need to do that. But I want to keep thriving and I want to keep going. And so I know that when I have someone to help me, like a life coach, I can be neutral for you. I can show you your thoughts and I can say, hey, do you like this? Do you want to stay this way or do you want to change? And change is awesome. And you can decide what change you want and what change you don't want. Actually, this is the funny part. You already are the driver of your own life, but a lot of us don't realize that. And so what we've done is we give the driver automatic pilot. And so we're like, I don't even know how I'm here in my life because we're not fully in charge, but we actually are in charge of our life. But if we're not embracing that, then we're letting other people's opinions, we're letting need for validation from other people be the driver. And that's not helpful. Okay. So in the Love Yourself In program, so it is $2,000. You pay once and you never have to pay me again. I will have some retreats and I have one planned in October. It's going to be amazing. It's on weight loss maintenance. So once you've lost all your weight and you want to get more help, so whether you have lost all your weight and want more help or whatever, you just want to get to know what the future is, you need to come to that. It's going to be amazing. But other than that, and you will get the replays of that, but you won't be able to have the live experience of it. So that's what's happening in October. But you pay me $2,000 and you have lifetime access to all the modules, to all the replays, everything. It's all there for you. Okay. And you can go right now. You can pay. It'd be so fun. I can shout you out on this call. But so that's what you get. And to get you more success and to help you have more encouragement, to help you really get the tools, I decided to have the Ask a Coach, which, by the way, I need to remember that. Let me write that down. Sorry. Ask a Coach. So you can ask me anything. I don't even know who asked me it. It's totally confidential, but then I can answer all those questions for you. And then we have a treasure trove in the program. So you have that. I also have the Facebook community, and I'm telling you, this Facebook community is amazing. I am so happy with the way the women are interacting with each other. They celebrate, they ask for coaching, and they do evaluations. Okay. So if you are watching me in the program right now, you're currently in the program, and if you're not taking advantage of this as much as you should, as much as I shouldn't say should, because we don't should on ourselves, as much as you would like, I encourage you to do that. So really getting that dialed in. So we do have, so I'm always thinking of like, how do I help them more and more? So we've got the 3 live coaching calls. So Mondays is we're doing a deep dive. And so this month of June, we're really talking about how do we create our own internal joy. And we're going to pick a goal and we're going to work on that goal all throughout the month. It's going to be amazing. The workbook, everything is so good. It's all dialed in. Now, Wednesdays, we have a new feature that we are playing around with that's really quite impressive. I have to say, it's called Weigh In Wednesdays. And this is where we get that accountability, where we record how much we've lost and we say why we think that we lost that weight and why we haven't lost the weight that we want. So what went well, what didn't go well, and what am I going to do better next time? And I even have a Google Doc that you can fill in, give you like kind of brain joggers, oh, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? And so that is happening every Wednesday. And we just started it this past week. And so that's been really interesting. And then Thursday's calls are just like, let's get my brain looked at. I'm not doing that great. I need help, or whatever it is, whatever you want help with. Okay. So those are the features of the Love Yourself Thin lifetime membership. And of course, you get replays on everything. It is like such a treasure trove. All my past classes, and then all the classes, the master courses that I do, they're all included. They're all there. The replays, you can get everything you need. So that is why I'm inviting you to join my Love Yourself Thin lifetime membership. It really is so beneficial. So who has any questions about that? Like I said, I can stay on here. I can answer any questions. If you aren't a part of the program yet and you still have questions, you don't want to ask them here on the call, you can always make a 20-minute, you can have a 20-minute conversation and you can ask me anything there too. So even going with Krista's question here too, is it does take you time, but just like you said, Krista, with a needle turn applique, you're going to find that it's easier and easier. And one of the things that I love to think about for myself, I am a boss at a lot of things now that I wasn't a boss at before. Like I am so good at like making a decision ahead of time and trusting myself, and with food and vacations and all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like I've really come so far. Yeah, it's totally getting easier, but I also know that when I have my own, when I do my own self-coaching, when I have my own life coach, when I am really honest and open with myself, that's where it's like I am such a different version of myself. It's like I love this evolution of me. I love when I wake up in the morning and look at myself and be like, wow, you have really, like, you're blowing your own mind. Like what I've been able to create, what I've been able to do, the relationship I have with my husband, the relationship I have with my kids, like all of that. I just love who I'm becoming. And that is wonderful work. Like I loved myself before, somewhat. And I am just finding it so much more fun to be me. Because like Carol was saying, like I'm learning who I am. I'm learning how great I can be. I'm learning how much fun it is to live. And I don't have all these conditions on myself. I'm not being so harsh to myself. I'm not being so punitive. I'm not speaking so meanly. Yeah, my family is noticing changes. Totally. It is my daughter, all my kids are just like, wow, mom, you were great before, but we really love who you are becoming. Isn't that so fun? And that's for all of you. All of you can be way more fun. Like I was saying, I went on vacation with my daughter. We went to a wedding, and it was amazing to me to see the kind of mom I am to her, the kind of person I am. Like I never imagined that I would be like that on a vacation. It was pretty awesome to watch me and really like break generational trends. Generational, because I've been on lots of vacations with my parents, and I've taken my kids on vacation, and I was very different on this vacation, and I really liked the version of me that I came up with. So that's super fun. All right. So anyone else have other questions specifically of joining the program? I really love selling Love Yourself Thin because I'm so focused on you, like on your transformation, on your ability to be that best version of you, because I know how powerful it is. And I know it's also work. So Love Yourself Thin is definitely not for people who just want a checklist. I mean, there's lots of suggestions and different things, but it does involve you being involved in your own success. But I do believe if you can make a quilt, if you can get on a Zoom call, you have enough skill sets that you can be successful here. But it does require you to be committed to yourself somewhat. I mean, there's tons of support, there's tons of guidance. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, it takes courage. It takes courage to change your relationship with food because it means that you're now being responsible for yourself. You can't blame anyone anymore. You can't blame your mom, or you can't blame your culture. You can't blame COVID. It doesn't work. All right. Well, it has been so fun to spend this time with you this afternoon. And I'm just so glad that you came here for you. And like I said, I invite any of you who are really wanting to experiment, who want to not experiment, but to take their relationship with themselves that much further. This investment is worth so much more than $2,000. And if you are on the fence about it or questioning it or whatever, please let's just chat. We can just make a consult. You can actually, the easiest thing is just to message me and say, hey Dara, let's meet. I know I have a schedule, but I don't have the scheduler here right on here. So you can just message me. All right. So there's no other questions. I'm gonna say goodbye. All right, take care, everyone.